Welcome to the Bad Roman Podcast. On this show, we talk with veterans, community leaders, Christians and non-Christians as we explore the entanglement of Christians with the state. The Bad Roman Project was created out of the firm belief that as Christians, we are called to follow Christ, not the state. Here is your host, Craig Hargis.
Hey folks, who would Jesus bomb? We've posed this question across our social media sites more than once, and the answer is almost a resounding nobody. But knowing this, we have to ask, why are there so many pro-war Christians? Well, today I have Jordan Smart on the show to talk about this and much more. Jordan wrote a song that caught my attention titled, Who Would Jesus Bomb?
Yeah. Left, right, left, right, left. We got our marching orders, man. Left, right. Would you rather serve God than serve Caesar, you feel me? Right. I'm just trying to live what he said.
Jordan, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, Craig.
What I do with new guests on the show is get some background from the guests to let us know anything they want to know about themselves, and then we'll just get into the topic. We'll talk about your inspiration writing the song. We'll talk about how I asked you before we started recording if you were always been anti-war or was it gradual. I want to talk to you about that because a lot of our listeners have similar backgrounds than my own, where I came from like a neoconservative type to moved into some libertarian circles and then went straight into anarchism. And now we're into Christian anarchy. So anarchy is all about the true sense of anarchy is peace.
Right.
If you get right down to what it actually means, the definition of anarchy, just leave each other alone and not kill each other. Listen, we can live together like God intended. And so that's where a lot of us come from. And so I want to get you to kind of tell us about your walk as far as like where you've always anti-war. But first, let's get some background and we'll kind of get into that after that.
Yeah. So I grew up in Ohio in a pretty religious family. I did grow up in like two households, but in my dad's house, we went to church every Sunday and sometimes on a Wednesday or Thursday. And I spent many hours in church all the way up until I was 18. When I was a teenager, I started to reject it pretty hard and I didn't want anything to do with it, but I was forced to go, which didn't really help the situation for me. But as far as music goes, I've been playing music since I was 10 years old and been writing songs all along. Since my teenage years, I started writing kind of politically minded stuff and topical songs. I write stuff like that as it's a way for me to process the world. A lot of, process the news, process things that are difficult to digest. Yeah, I've been doing that for quite a long time. I play music professionally now. And maybe for the last 10 years or so, it's been the primary thing I do. I work odd jobs to make ends meet. Right now I'm doing landscaping, but I tour and play shows. And then in the last year or so, I started a project actually because of the ongoing war or genocide in Gaza called Songs Not Bombs. That project was kind of like an overnight, like just texted a friend one day and was like, I think I'm going to make a compilation album and try and raise some funds, and ended up getting together 2 volumes of a compilation album with like 40 plus artists from around the country, some international. And we raised like $15,000 for the PCRF. And that was kind of a wild, I didn't think it was going to go that way. So that was kind of like I don't know. I've always gone to protests and stuff all the way back to like the Occupy protests. I was at those. But I never really got into organizing and or like fundraising kind of stuff. And so kind of a new thing to navigate. And then, yeah, as far as the anti-war aspect, you asked if I've always been on that beat. I have really since I was a kid. I got into punk rock when I was like, I think 13 years old. My cousins that I spent a lot of time with had a computer hard drive full of Misfits and Ramones and Sex Pistols, and then a bunch of like anarchist punk bands. And I started listening to that stuff when I was a kid, and yeah, it opened my mind a lot. And I just recently was talking to a friend about how it's funny because I play like folk music now. And really, that's like a convenience thing. It's very convenient and easy to just be one guy with a guitar. I can take myself and my guitar anywhere, and I don't have to schedule it with hardly anybody. So that's pretty nice. but I've always been like a punk at heart, I feel. And my ideals haven't really changed all that much. I think they've developed, you know? I think when I was a kid, I was like, oh, I heard this punk band. I'm trying to think of the song. It might be the band Anti-Flag. I'm pretty sure they have a song that's called Die for Your Government. And it's just, you gotta die, gotta die for your government, die for your country. That's shit. And like as a 14-year-old kid, I was like, what is this? It's like so simple. And they just laid it out. I was like, yeah, that's right. Nobody needs to be going to war. Like, we don't need to be fighting and killing each other. My first electric guitar, there was like this free sticker website back in the day, in the early days of the internet. There was War is Not the Answer. And you could just like put in your address and they would just send you a packet full of stickers, like of bumper stickers for free, which I thought was amazing because I was a broke kid in the country. So I stuck those all over my first guitar. I had like the inverted American flag with some words written in the white on my wall as a teenager. So I've always been there, you know? And I think really like in the last several months, just since October, it's just like, I've just never seen anything like this in my life, you know? Like, we've seen horrific things in our lifetimes, but I've just never really seen the images that are coming out of Palestine and Gaza. I've never seen this kind of carnage, and at the level that it's happening and at the frequency it's happening, you know? It's like I can open my phone and every single day for the last 250 something days now, I can see daily new images of people blown to pieces and like and people writhing in pain and people in deep emotional agony like nothing I've ever seen before. So that's just like that kind of, I feel like this whole thing has been a real catalyst to like take what I've always kind of believed in and just really lean into it and like tap into what I believe in and start speaking on it without being afraid anymore of like whose feelings I might hurt or who I might offend or who I might confuse or who I might alienate.
No, I love it. No, I love that. There's a lot we could pick apart right there, just or not pick apart, but talk about just in your background yourself. You know, you at the very beginning of all that, you talked about processing what you're seeing in this world.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I've always loved about music. Like I said, I can't sing, I can't play an instrument, but I can listen to a song. Like you were talking about listening to some of these old punk bands. You can listen to something like what we're seeing in the world today. Like you brought up Palestine. We'll get into that too, because it's been heartbreaking to see. And I've got so many Christian friends on one side that are celebrating some of this stuff going on. It makes me sick to my stomach. But going back to the music aspect of it, I had Josh Nichols on not too long ago, and now you today, and I've had other musicians on the show. I like talking to musicians because the way you are able to express yourself and what you're feeling, what you're saying is amazing to me. That being said, I can't sing, I can't play an instrument, but I can listen to y'all's music. And a lot of the times it's what I'm trying to say, but I don't know how to say it.
Yeah.
And that's what I appreciate so much about music and about musicians, because to me, it's just poetry. And it's something deep inside y'all that you're trying to get out. The way y'all are able to put it out through music is, I've always been fascinated by it. I really appreciate what y'all are doing, especially stuff like this, when we're seeing a lot of this pro-war type stuff among Christians, and I just don't understand it. I used to. I listen to all different types of music. I could go from outlaw country music to Tupac in the matter of 5 minutes. And I can hear things in their music, the stuff that Tupac was saying. A lot of what Tupac was saying, he was like this anti-state type stuff, and I could really resonate with a lot of stuff he was saying now.
Yeah.
But back then, I still like my outlaw country. But a lot of that stuff that I was listening to, this very patriotic type stuff, really kind of framed how I viewed the world too.
For sure.
So I spent a lot of time listening to country music and then going to Southern Baptist churches and then seeing the stuff that was, back in 9/11, I was hardcore pro-war guy. I mean, I thought we just had to go back and get them, but I was not able to separate. All right, this is the stuff that government's doing and what we should be supporting, because even those folks in Afghanistan, Iraq, now Palestine, are God's creation too.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, you're seeing these images coming across, and these are, to me, Jesus is grieving over what he's seeing over there, not celebrating it. I see all this I stand with Israel type stuff. And, I think it's one thing to say to stand with the people of Israel, but to defend what their government's doing is a whole different thing.
Right.
I understand Hamas attacked them in October. But if you go back to the history of this, there's a longer history of what's going on and why they may be attacking them.
Uh-huh.
This is not defending Hamas either.
Uh-huh.
I'm more concerned with the people caught in the middle of all this garbage that's getting people's lives slaughtered. And I'm talking about babies, and you're talking about the images. I've seen some of the same stuff you're probably talking about come across my social media. Or somebody will send me something, and I almost can't look at it.
It's
because it looks like something you see in a movie, but this is not a movie. This is real life.
right.
This is not staged. You know, we can see some stuff that might look staged. This stuff's not staged. These people are being slaughtered. You know, the stuff when we saw, I talk about it often on the show, is what Barack Obama started in Yemen and Donald Trump continued and Biden continued. There was a genocide going on in Yemen too, but nobody wants to talk about it. Well, I don't know if they don't want to talk about it. They're ignorant to it.
Yeah.
Because they're certainly not hearing about it in their churches. Corporate media is not talking about that stuff. So this is when I get information like this from music or from other podcasts, and I'm seeing this stuff. Why are we not having a conversation about this out loud? And a lot of people are. There are a lot of people standing up and saying, you know what? I don't agree with this.
Yeah.
This is disgusting. This is wrong. And people who are standing up against it get shouted down by the majority. We see it all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't understand it anymore. I've said this too, and I've got a little bit of pushback from people about it. I don't know how old you are, but I have a lot of faith in the younger generation right now. I'll be 50 years old next year. Okay. So there's a lot of stuff like in my age group, depending on what circles you're in, a lot of them are still kind of confused about what they're going back and forth on it. But the younger generation is starting to stand up and say, you know what? I've had enough of this shit.
Yeah.
I've had enough of it. And they're standing up saying something. I'm not saying that there's not people infiltrating some of these protests and, trying to cause their own kind of harm through it. I agree. I believe that that's happening too. But I think the vast majority of these people are just like, you know what? I'm sick of this shit.
Well, yeah, the younger generations have so much less to lose. I mean, I'm 35, and I have felt from a young age, I felt like I could see that the system was set up not to benefit us and the people around us. And I grew up in a family that was struggling, and like I saw how it was for my parents to try and like work with the system to get support when we needed it, and how little support there actually was. And I've just watched it get worse and worse and worse. And so I imagine that a kid who grew up, who's maybe 10, 15 years younger than me, or somebody who's graduating high school now, and they're living with the 24-hour news cycle, they're living with social media from their teenage years now. We didn't really have that when I was a kid. I can only imagine like being bombarded with information, and also just like kind of like, a common thing we talk about now is doom scrolling, and these kids are doing that as teenagers. Like a lot of them don't feel like they have any hope, and in a way that's awful, and it's sad for them, and I wish that that's not how things were. But it's also, I feel like that lack of hope is a catalyst for change. It's a lot of people who are like, we don't have anything to lose. You've taken it all from us. So we're not afraid to say what we think. We're not afraid to call you out. We're not afraid to take a stand, because we've got nothing. We have no future if we don't. And so I respect them a lot for that. And I feel you. I'm with you on that. I have a lot of hope and a lot of respect for the younger generations right now who are fighting this fight.
Yeah. And, talking about somebody who just now graduating high school too, you got to think too, a lot of these kids have grown up knowing nothing but war.
Right.
You go all the way back to like 9/11. Now, we haven't been attacked in this country per se, like we're attacking other countries. But that's all they're seeing in these news cycles. And they were born into it basically back in 9/11, or some are older than that now. But you know what I'm saying? That's all they've known. I don't know if you heard this, but I read the other day that the United States government has been at war over 93% of its existence. That's insane.
Yeah.
And I've said that over and over on the show, which if that doesn't tell you what this government's about, 93% of its existence been at war. Come on. This is not a peaceful country.
I saw somebody share a thing that Caitlin Johnstone, I think is her name. She's a writer, and I saw her share a thing. Somebody read it online. It was basically saying the United States government is not a government entity that is like operating with a military force imperially around the world. It's actually the other way around. Basically, the military industrial complex is controlling the government. The government is not controlling the military industrial complex. It's And if you look at it that way, yeah, and if 93% of the history of our country is us bombing other people and killing people around the world, then yeah, that's the core thing of our country.
Right. And they want to try to fix it through the government. To me, I think it's time to walk away from it and do our own thing and just watch it, because eventually it'll collapse. Now, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if it makes it worse for everybody in this country. Probably, maybe in the short time period it might, but I think over the long haul, if there wasn't some kind of empire that's running all this stuff, I think we'd be much better off, especially the younger generation, because they'll be able to clean it up, figure it out, and see where we go from here.
Yeah, I mean, I see it as an inevitability. At a certain point, this is just what we're doing is not sustainable.
Bro,
You just can't, things can't keep going the way they are. There's going to be a massive, drastic change. And who knows how or what's going to make that happen and what shape it will take after that. I don't know.
yeah, I think a lot of what's the last bastion of people trying to hold on to some of this stuff is your boomer types. And you said earlier that when you were telling us about yourself that you just got to lean into it, not really worry about who you alienate or who gets upset with you. And I think that's bold. I don't have a problem with that, because that's what we've done with this project. Is I've leaned into a lot of things that I believe now, even if it's going to upset somebody. And I've said it over and over on the show. I've lost friends for what I believe now. And once you kind of understand things for what they really are and understand the truth of the matter, then it's really difficult to go back unless you just want to live in some kind of comfort of knowing that you've got some people on your side that are going to defend your hatred towards other people.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, like, as far as like alienating people or like leaning into your beliefs and whatnot. Like I said, I've been playing music for a long time. I've toured the country. I've lived around the country a lot. I lived in California and Colorado, Ohio, and now I'm in Kentucky. So I know people all over the place, but like through the type of music I play, which has primarily been like singer-songwriter folk music, I've played some cool little festivals and made friends and like connections through that. That's been my main thing I've done in my life. I've met a lot of people through it, met a lot of good people, and made most of my friendships and comrades have been through this, but it's not really been politically focused. I will say that the vast majority of people that I met in the last 10, 15 years or something would all be on the left-ish, on the political spectrum. They're mostly on the left. A lot of them are like pretty straight up just liberal Democrats. And 5 or 6 years ago, when I was writing like topical songs about Trump, they were eating it up and they loved it, and they thought it was funny and entertaining. And recently, though, when I started writing or I started speaking up about Palestine, those same people, some of them were very close friends even, were like kind of trying to shush me up or like warning me essentially like, hey man, I think you should be careful with talking about this stuff. You might alienate some of your fans or some of your friends. You might lose a fan base, or like you're going to drive people away with what you're saying about this. And I was just like, dude, I'm talking about how children are being blown up with our tax dollars every single day, and I'm seeing it on my phone. And you want to tell me that I should be worried about my fan base? If me saying that to you, if me saying that drives somebody away, then that's fine. They can go away. They clearly didn't know what I was about from the very start, because I've always been about this. I never thought I'd have to sing about it. I never thought I'd have to really put it out there, because to my knowledge, nothing has happened like to this magnitude. We've seen conflicts, we've seen awful things in the news, but I've never seen anything like this. And so it touched me on a deep level. I'm also a father. I have a 7-year-old daughter. So when I'm seeing these videos and these images, I'm like, I see my kid in it, and I can't help but have a deep reaction to it. And I want to talk to people about it. I started to see that the vast majority of the people that I was connected with, which are like, 30, 40 something white American, mostly non-religious people, like, were completely silent. And I was like, this is really uncomfortable. Their silence was deafening and scary to me almost. There's a lot of hippie type people too, who, on the surface appear to be about peace and love and all that and freedom and free speech and, but I started to question all that. I'm like, where do you guys really stand if you're just like, can just ignore this? Where do you really stand? Like, what do you believe in if you think that like, I need to shut up about this? So I was like, it was like a whole process of just being like, I don't care. I don't care anymore. I don't care about my fan base. I don't care about my friendships are valuable to me. But if you think that the things I'm saying are hard for you and you don't want to like talk to me anymore because of it, then that's on you. I'm sorry. Like, go ahead and walk away, because I have love for you and compassion. And I also have love and compassion for people that are being affected by things that we, the people, are funding,
Yeah.
And all of that was to kind of say that I had my echo chamber, and I know that exists. I'm aware of it. We all have our own echo chambers that we build up, but it's been interesting because since I put that song out, Who Would Jesus Bomb, my fan base grew exponentially, rapidly. And the people who were responding to that song were not just Christians. They're Christians, they're atheists, agnostics, Muslims, Jews, Buddhists, all of the above, Catholics, like all of them. It was resonating with everybody. And all of those people are now, and like, that's like what my follower base is now. So maybe I have an so-called echo chamber now that's just bigger, but it's people who are what we're calling pro-Palestinian. But they're also way more diverse than they've ever been. And they have all these different belief systems and understandings of the world. And I'm sure that I would disagree with many people on plenty of different subjects. But at least on this one, which is like, at its core, it's an issue of humanity. That, to me, we either see these people as humans who deserve what every human deserves, or we see them as other. And I choose to see them as human beings because that's what they are.
Yeah.
It's been a lot, but I guess I'm grateful for the opportunity to connect with people and connect with people who aren't just like, don't look like me, don't have all the same interests as me, who aren't just like one homogenized blob of white folkies.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple things there. And what I've always found interesting about like the left side of this, because I came from your typical neoconservatism Republican, that you probably would have got along with each other back in the day.
Perhaps.
Or we could have, but if it came down to this topic, I would not have seen eye to eye with you.
Yeah.
Is I guess the better way to say that. I get along with anybody, but I was so into this war propaganda that they were pushing on us. I believed everything the government was telling me. That's your first mistake, Craig, first of all.
Yeah.
Anything they're telling you.
Right.
Back then, I just took everything George W. Bush was saying as gospel, basically. We're just going to believe him, and we're going to go in there and kill them over there before they kill us over here.
Right.
When I would get in these discussions with people on the left back then, it's always been fascinating to me now, like through the 8 years of Obama, they were silent because Obama just ramped up everything that Bush was doing. Trump did the same thing. Then they come back during Trump. And then during Biden, they go silent during some of this stuff. So it's strange to me when you say that you should be careful. They were telling you to be careful what you're putting out there because you're going to alienate some of your fan base. And this is coming from folks from the free speech type people, the anti-war type people that I understood them to be.
Uh-huh.
So when you tell me that, I'm like, that's just so strange to me because we're supposed to have that kind of pushback when it comes to war and stuff like this. And now it seems like everybody's all in, depending on who's in office.
Exactly. Well, I keep seeing people share that sentiment, and like liberals and Democrats would be losing their minds if Trump was doing what Biden is doing right now.
100%.
And I know that because also it's like Biden just passed the thing about the like immigration at the border. He's not really made any progress there. That was one of the big things that he was telling us in his campaign, was that he's going to roll back Trump's border wall policy, and he's just made it worse. He's just built up on top of it, but all the same people who were all about it before are saying nothing now. And a few weeks ago when that news hit, all those same people have nothing to say. They're not interested in talking about it. It's startling, really.
Well, too, I don't know if you saw this one too, that the House just passed the time it's recorded, they just passed a bill where basically they're going to legalize conscription.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Did you see that?
I did, yeah.
Where's the outrage? Where's it at?
Yeah.
I don't even hear it on the left or the right. I'm not hearing it on any, if I happen to see any kind of corporate media, I don't even hear it there. I'm learning this stuff through podcasts.
It's interesting because some of the same folks were like telling me be careful about alienating people or be quiet or like maybe change your approach in how you say these things or what you do. And those same folks multiple people were echoing the same sentiment, which was that they were claiming that I am being used by social media. Like I'm basically becoming a pawn to social media by playing into these subjects and getting swept up in these news cycles. And I'm like, man, you're just posting pictures of your dinner. You know what I mean? I'm on here talking to people about a revolution. And you're telling me that I'm the one being used? Like half the stuff I'm posting about is like I have to put code words so that the algorithm doesn't suppress the material that I'm putting out. Like nobody's suppressing your dog pictures. You know what I mean? So who's using who here?
As somebody who's a big fan of my cats, I'll post all kinds of pictures of my cats.
Oh, that's fine.
But in the next breath, I might be posting something about what we're talking about today. I can mix it up a little bit.
Oh, for sure. And you need to keep their algorithm happy. I think that a lot of people are just interested in protecting the status quo, you know? That's what it feels like is really what it is. They're comfortable, you know? And so they're like, okay, well, I don't know. What am I supposed to be able to do about somebody across the world? I'm just trying to make myself happy.
Well, stop putting warmongers in office, first of all. Stop doing that. That's the first thing you can do. That would be that's where I would tell them to start. Because you don't go voting for people. Maybe I was the same way back in the day too. But people will vote based on their fears now and not on any kind of principle. Because they're afraid of the other guy, the lesser of two evils, and that depends on who you're talking to, what side you're talking to, who's the most evil of the two. You know, that's where they're voting from, and I'm like, that's just stupid to me.
It's real stupid. I was thinking about it recently, and it was like people talk about the lesser of two evils, and a lot of the libs are trying to say that Biden is the lesser of two evils. And I'm like, okay. I get that. I get why people think that way. I've been accused of being a single issue voter because I've said I'm not going to vote for Biden because I already did vote for him. And it felt like lesser of two evils then. And now it just feels even more so that, or I guess I shouldn't say lesser of two evils. Now it just feels like straight evil. The two options on the ticket are evil or evil. It doesn't matter which one's less. They're both evil.
Right.
But because I won't vote for him because of particularly the number one issue is the genocide in Gaza, I'm now a single issue voter. And when I'm having these conversations, because I am talking to people still, I have friends who are like, we had some arguments about it, trying to understand each other. And like for a lot of people, Biden is damage control, you know? It's like harm reduction for marginalized people. And I understand that, why people think that's how it is. But when I really am like, so the main reason you were going to vote for Biden, though, is because of Donald Trump, right? And you're like, yeah, because if we don't vote for Biden, then we have Trump. I'm like, you're a single issue voter. Like,
got you.
Your issue is Donald Trump. And that's the only reason. And that's the only reason I can get anyone to tell me why they would vote for Biden now is like, because nobody wants him. Nobody wants him there.
I want to go back to something you said earlier when you were talking about your friends who kind of left or kind of trying to discourage you from what you're doing. I want to encourage you to continue doing it. And I want you to continue to lean into it because that's what we've done with this is I lean into a lot of what we're going to talk about because I'm really staunch no king but Christ now. There's no going back for me. And it's caused pushback and that's fine. But At the same time, you've got people who would even never heard of you, like myself, until somebody sent me your song.
Right.
And that's when I reached out to you. So lean into it, because a lot of people will message me and say, the thing we like about the show so much is because you're authentic. You're being real.
Yeah.
And if that's what you're doing with your music, if you're being real, man, keep doing that, because that's how you're going to get the message out. There's people that want you to kind of back off, and we don't have time for that.
Right.
We don't have time for me to back off and stop telling the truth. We need to lean into all of this and be as loud and as bold as possible, because they need to hear this. People need to hear this, because at this moment, there are babies being slaughtered across the world at the hands of the government that you voted for.
Right.
Lean into it.
Yeah. I'm in pretty deep at this point.
Hey folks, do you like salsa? I love salsa. I have come up with a fire recipe, and we have been shipping this homemade salsa all across the country. If you like salsa and want a cool way to support the project and spread the message of no king but Christ, then holler at us. You can reach us at badromansalsa@gmail.com or visit the official Bad Roman Salsa Facebook page and message us there. Thank y'all so much for your continued support. Now let's get back to the show. Let's go over some of the lines of your song.
Okay.
And for folks who have not listened to this song, you can find it Jordan Smart Music on Instagram. I'm sure we'll get you to plug everywhere you're at the end of the show as well. But my buddy Chris sent me this song, and let's talk about the would Jesus bomb the atheist, the Muslim, or the Jew? I mean, that's one of the lines in your song.
Yeah.
And because you know that your audience has expanded to, it's not so much of an echo chamber anymore. It's more of a people trying to come in and understand it. You know what? I'm sick of this too. And Jordan put out a song talking about this. Did you plug that in there for a reason, or was it?
Oh, no. That was just the sentiment of the song.
Okay.
The changing of my fan base or following that I was mentioning came after this song. So I put this out, and then it reached people of all walks of life, races, religions, belief systems, whatever, you know. And I think that could also be because of a line like that. It's speaking to a lot of different people, you know. A lot of people have, like I said, there have been countless people who are in the comments who are atheists and saying, I'm not religious whatsoever, but this song had me emotional. So something about it tapped into, I don't know, the collective unconscious or whatever, that people are feeling it.
Right. And what I appreciate about that line so much is I've made it a point to make sure that this is not an echo chamber type show. I will talk to anybody.
Yeah.
I'll talk to an atheist. I'll talk to a Muslim. I'll talk to a Jew.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I just sit down and talk to Christian anarchists all the time about how we believe Christian anarchy is the way, it's going to go as far as it's going to go.
Right.
You can't expand your audience by just being like that. And so I think that's why that resonated with me, because I will speak to any of these people.
Yeah.
I want people to feel comfortable coming in here and talking about their path. Everybody's got their own journey that they're trying to get through this. And there's a lot of things they're seeing in this world that's bothering them, and they want to try and figure this stuff out. Sometimes music does that. It helps them do that.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that line quite a bit.
Yeah. I mean, I just, you know, like I said, I went to church a lot, and really I'm not religious these days. I have more questions than I do answers, you know, and I'm open, and I feel like I have like I wouldn't say that I have like a spiritual belief system, but I kind of feel like I have spirituality. I don't know what to label any of it. And I've always resonated with Christ since I was a kid. And even when I rejected the church when I was 14 years old, I still always was down with Jesus, you know. To this day, I'm still like, I've never been... There were points where I was like very anti-religion. Like I just felt I was so disillusioned by it that I just rejected it completely, and I thought it was just garbage. Even at those points, though, I was still like, but Jesus is cool,
right?
You know, like just like, and I learned about Buddhism, and I learned about the Buddha, and I was like, hey, those guys are like, those are my dudes. Like they represent the things that I'm about, and I can't deny any of that. I guess that's to say that like what I liked about Christ was that I just felt like even from a young age I was able to understand, when I boiled everything I learned about him down to a very simple message, is that it was just like have compassion for other people.
That's it.
It's just like be compassionate and towards every human being. Like every person is deserving of compassion.
Right.
And if we can all tap into that, we're going to have a much better life and a much better world. So that's kind of, I guess that's what that line is about. It's just like every single person deserves compassion.
You and I would get along quite well today, I think, because my faith, that's kind of how my faith went. I don't get into theological discussions because I am disillusioned with church myself. I don't go to church on a regular basis because why do we have over 60,000 denominations in America alone?
Right.
That's confusing to me. So to me, the message of Jesus has been confused. If you get back to the very basic teaching, I say this all the time on the show, just love your neighbor, love your enemy. Let's start from there and see what happens. Go back to the Sermon on the Mount, talk about the teaching. Let's read the teachings of Christ there in the Sermon on the Mount. It's not very long. And let's just start there.
Right.
And see what happens. All this other stuff is just stuff to me. So I appreciate what you just said about all that. You know, what you experience with church and stuff too, I can understand that. I saw it a lot when I was a kid. My dad's a pastor, still a pastor of a church down in Texas. When I have an atheist on the show or somebody's not coming at this from like looking at it through the Bible or the teaching of Christ or a Muslim or a Jew or anybody, what they're seeing, how they're seeing Christians behave is their image of Jesus sometimes. And that's why they stay away from the church. And I'm trying to get them to understand that it's what you're seeing with these Christians is not actually how Jesus told us to behave.
Right.
You're pro-war type Christians. You're shitting on gay people.
Right.
You know, stuff like that. That's not what Jesus would have done. He would not have condoned any of that stuff.
Jesus wouldn't go to church on Sunday and then go to the Texas Roadhouse and treat the waiter like shit afterwards.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Or get mad when the mashed potatoes are out of the buffet.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. This is true. But so, yeah, that part, that's what I got from the song. And I can see how people listening to it got emotional to it. Because the main question in that song is, who would Jesus bomb?
Yeah.
And then you built off of that with some other lines. Would Jesus bomb these kids in Palestine and Vietnam? I would say no.
Right.
I would say no. But when we've got these stand with Israel type Christians, which, like I said earlier, when you say Israel, who are you talking about?
Right.
Are you talking about Netanyahu, or are you talking about the babies in Israel too?
Right.
I can get down with that too. Yeah, I want to stand with the people of Israel too, and the people of Gaza. Okay, so who are you talking about? Are you talking about the government, or are you talking about the people? And I think they're talking about the government.
They are,
because I don't think they're able to separate. I don't think they're able to separate the two. They think that Netanyahu's doing what he's supposed to, just like I did when I thought George Bush would be attacking Afghanistan and then starting a war in Iraq. I believed all that garbage.
Yeah.
You know, but I get, this is where my frustration comes with these people, because I'm like, at what point do you take a step back and say, who would Jesus bomb? And if you tell me that Jesus would condone this, they'll try to pick some Old Testament scriptures out. And I'm like, okay, now compare that to what Jesus said in the New Testament.
Right.
I'll wait. Find anything in the New Testament that could point to Jesus bombing children. I'll eat your hat. I'll eat your entire hat if you can find one of those lines for me, because it's not in there.
Yeah. Actually, as far as the I Stand With Israel thing goes, the reason when I wrote this song, actually, it was in response to my stepmom posted a image on Facebook of a character obviously looked like Jesus, white Jesus that we have depicted here, that I grew up seeing, holding a lamb, wearing military fatigues, with a rifle on his back, and standing in front of an Israeli flag, and it said, "I stand with Israel." And when I saw that image, I was just like, I'm done. Like, I've never talked to my folks about any of this, and I was like, I'm talking now. Like, and I did. I told him, I was like, hey, I'm just letting you know, I don't know. My parents share Facebook, and I was like, I don't know which one of you posted this, but I'm not okay with it. I'm not okay with it. And I don't think you could share this if you knew truly the magnitude of what's happening. And if you're okay with that, then we have some serious issues. And it caused some problems in my family for me to stand up against that. And I was basically just told, if you don't like it, scroll on.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, really? Okay. And so I just wrote that song. Like, I was filled with anger and frustration and disappointment, and like trying to understand what I grew up with. Like, it just makes me feel like, I'm like, I didn't need to keep going to church. I didn't need to read the Bible every day to understand the basic teachings of how to be a decent person to other human beings and how to care about other people, whether they look like you, sound like you, act like you, eat like you or not. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what point my family members lost sight of that, you know? And I think that when you said that are they standing with the people or are they standing with the government? I think they are standing with the government. I think they've been manipulated by those governments.
For sure.
The Israeli government is pulling so many strings in our government and has been for so long. And it's to the point where, that's like, some people would say me just saying that is like anti-Semitic. That's like the trope of like
Right.
the Jewish people who run the world. But it's like, no, it's the way governments work. And we've been deeply, deeply indoctrinated and inundated with propaganda our entire lives to believe things are a certain way. And I think that people like family members of mine are really vulnerable to that and susceptible to that propaganda, like the same folks, like you were saying, and it sounds like you found your way out of it, but post 9/11 we saw the massive surge of just insane patriotic American exceptionalism propaganda pumped out of every media outlet. It's still happening, that was a major shift in our country. And some people saw it for what it was when it was happening, and some people got swept up in it and are just like, that's where they are to this day. And I feel like that's a tough thing.
Yeah, I think the way I found my way out of it was actually, and I've talked about this on the show a million times, but since this is our first time talking, actually it was Donald Trump and his nomination in 2016, 2015, 2016, where I stopped voting Republican because I didn't like him. I still don't like him. Still don't care for that man. And so I got into libertarian circles, which led me into understanding anarchy, and getting more into that. Then it led me into like early church writings, pre-Constantine early church writings, and reading their anti-war stuff. If you go read the first 400 years of the early church, it was nonviolent. They were pacifists. I mean, it was something that Jesus taught them. So reading that really helped get me out of all of that understanding because, as soon as 9/11 hit, I was on board for whatever.
Wow.
I even tried to sign up for the military. The nomination of Trump really kind of opened my eyes to, well, politics is stupid.
Yeah.
This doesn't make any sense. So that happened to a lot of people that follow the show too. And so what do you think? Because my mom, I'm very proud of. She taught me very early on to question things and stuff. And she's kind of come a long way too when it comes to voting. She doesn't vote. She doesn't participate. And she sees it for what it is now. When you see like what your folks posted, what do you think their mindset is that it's?
I love my parents.
Yeah, I don't want you to beat your parents up on the show. That's not what I was trying to get you to do.
No, it's fine. I love them, and I'm not going to beat them up about anything. But they don't really understand the history. I first became interested in this topic like a few years ago, and in that time, and especially in the last year, I've read a few books. I've watched a few documentaries. Like I've read essays, and like I've learned about it. And I just know that's not the type of information that my folks consume.
Right.
So they're just like, they're getting the surface level shit from social media.
Right.
And that's what's guiding them. And I've seen it happen with a lot of people in my family. Social media is where people get their information now, and they just kind of move with the masses. It's like, this is the thing that people are saying now. Okay, I'm on board.
Yeah.
Like, regardless if they really have like an understanding of the subject or not. Another thing that like a lot of Christians do is that they have this idea that like, well, everything's part of God's plan. If God didn't intend this to be happening, then it wouldn't be happening the way that it is. And this is all God's plan. And that was something that when I was a teenager and I started to reject the idea of God and I started to reject the church, I was like, this is God's plan? Like watching people suffer like this, like certain things are just like, if this is a plan of anyone, like I can't, that feels so heartless to me. Like, and I've developed a different understanding since then, but I think that that's what a lot of people's idea is now, is like, well, this is just what God intended. Now, there's also the whole like evangelical Christians who are Zionists because they believe in the end times prophecy, and this is all part of it. And so they're like, well, it's too bad about all those kids, but this is what has to happen so that Jesus can come back.
This is God's plan. I used to be that guy. You just described my old Craig, actually. That was me. I've walked away from all that stuff too.
Yeah.
Where's I going to go next? Oh, okay. Who would Jesus starve? Would he take a neutral stance during a genocide? And I don't believe he would. And it comes back to that point. Well, if we know this about Jesus, why is there so many pro-war Christians? And I think that you said it perfectly right there. They're getting their information on social media. And that's dangerous because we know that how well social media can, just like the government, manipulate a person into believing a certain thing, And I had a conversation with somebody the other day. He posted on Facebook, it said, military recruitment is down in the U.S. More and more people refusing to sign up to join the military. And he was pretty upset about it. And all I said was, I think it's wonderful. That more and more people are rejecting this idea that we have to go kill people in other countries. We're just not doing this anymore.
Right.
He goes, so you want a weaker, or then one of his buddies jumped on. He goes, so you want a weaker military? And I'm like, I follow Jesus, man. I am not worried about our government or the military being as strong as possible. Because in my opinion, the United States government is a bigger threat to my freedom and liberty over any other government in this world. That includes China and Russia that they kept wanting to throw in my face too. I said, Russia's not over here stealing over half of my income, but the United States government is.
Yeah.
That's not freedom. And I was like, and this is where I always get them. And they can't ever come back with the response. I was like, all right, if they are protecting our freedom, if they're dying for our freedom, then why isn't the White House on fire? Why aren't all these government mansions on fire across the country? These are the people that are actually affecting your liberty, taking your liberty away. They are actively stealing your freedom.
Right.
Where's the military out of this? I know it says that they take an oath to defend the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic.
Right.
Where's this at? Don't hit me with that garbage that they're here, they died for our freedoms. I don't believe that. I think they were manipulated. A lot of them were manipulated into joining this, like I almost was back in 2001.
Yeah.
So yes, I think it's wonderful that the military is weaker today, if that's what we're saying.
Well,
but you can't tell me that people in Afghanistan or Yemen or Gaza think that our military is weaker. We're funding all this stuff through Israel right now anyway.
Right.
Everything Israel has, we're funding that for them.
Those people are feeling the strength of it firsthand all the time.
100%. And it's disturbing. Hey, folks. We have set up a very simple way to donate to the Bad Moment Project through SpotFund.com. Just go to SpotFund and search No King But Christ. This has become necessary to continue to provide a quality podcast and keep production costs down as well. Just $5 or $10 a month will go a long way in helping us keep this project going and continue spreading the very basic message of No King But Christ. So if you like what we were doing and can find it within your budget, go to SpotFund.com and search No King But Christ, and you can set up monthly donations or even donate one time. Any and all donations help more than you know, and as always, any donations above production costs will go directly to charities in Memphis, Tennessee. Thank y'all so much. Now back to the show. Let's do a couple more lines. Would he hate the gay folks or the trans? I love this line because there's certain things that I see Christians fight about. It's that they, especially with the pro-war stuff, or are we going to hate on the gay person today? And so we're recording this in June. I guess it's Pride Month. I don't really pay a lot of attention to a whole lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's always a lot of fun that I see Christians coming out and poking fun at people they don't understand. I'm not gay. I have no interest in participating in something like that, but I'm not going to hate this person either.
Oh.
There may have been a time back in the day where I might have said something cross because I didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, okay, that's between them and God.
Right.
I'm not going to beat them up over it. If it's a sin, then it's a sin. But that's between them and God. That's not for me to go beat them over the head. I mean, Jesus was very clear when he said, cast the first stone,
Right.
whoever was without sin. So let's talk about that line a little bit. Why'd you plug that one into a song that's titled, Who Would Jesus Bomb?
To me, all these issues are interconnected. Oppressed people are oppressed people, and marginalized people are marginalized people. And it doesn't matter what part of them makes them that. It doesn't matter if it's their race or if it's their gender identity or their sexuality or if it's their location on the planet.
Yeah.
Like they're marginalized for whatever reason. And that's an issue that I have with a lot of Christians these days, is that it just seems like there's an insane level of hypocrisy in it. That's just like, I was taught Jesus loves the little children, there were no exceptions there. You know what I mean? There were never any exceptions.
Yeah.
But now I see people who are like, in the name of God, wanting to strike people down. And in Jesus' name, I will kill them. You know what I mean? Like, that's the level that people are operating on. I'm like, where did that come from? What Bible did you read? Because that is not what I gathered from all of that. I mean, I just included that because it's an issue. It's an issue that I have friends who are gay. I have plenty of friends who are queer folks and trans folks, and they're good people, and that's all that they need to be for me to accept them. And they don't even have to, whatever good people is, they're people, and they deserve the right to live, and they deserve to be who they are and let their journey of their life be theirs. And no one else should be deciding any bit of it for them. No government, no religious institution, nobody should be determining whether or not people get to live the way they want to live. A person being trans does not harm me. It never has.
Right. That's what I was just sitting there thinking when you were saying that. I was like, you said whatever good people are. You said, but they're not harming you. Why should you go attack them for something they're not doing to harm you? And I think that's a great point. I mean, if they're not harming me, why do I care what they're doing? If they're not harming other people, why do I care what they're doing?
I mean, I feel like all of these issues that we're seeing bubble up in this country and that we're seeing are becoming becoming voting issues, and we're seeing people's rights being taken away. I think it's all just political theater, and it's all just a way to divide all of us. And it's all these things are to get us to hate each other and our neighbors, so that we don't see each other and our neighbors as a united people who are being manipulated by a very small group of people who are just laughing all the way to the bank.
Bingo.
The ruling class has been shattered into millions of little factions, and we're all pointing fingers everywhere. But really, it's like, we're just like, the elite ruling class they're doing fine, and we're not. They've got that on us. They're organized.
That's such a beautiful point. I say that all the time to folks too. These people don't care about you, and they are meeting together. They're friends behind the scenes, and they're meeting together, having dinner and drinks with each other, and laughing at you all the way to the bank.
Yep.
And it's worked out perfectly for them.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, I like this part that you said too. That's a very small amount of people. That's the part of the ruling class. And if people would just recognize that there's way more of us than there are of them, I believe we could ignore them out of existence. This idea of that they have some kind of righteous authority because they're sitting in some big white mansion with a suit and tie on, and they're all attorneys or whatever background they come from. I just don't believe that anymore. Jesus would have been for the common man. Jesus would have been for the ones being oppressed.
Yeah.
In fact, he instructed us to do that. Instructed us to help them.
Not the ones hoarding wealth.
Right. 100%. All right, a couple more lines. We'll kind of put them together. You mentioned the border a while ago with Biden. If I happen to see something on TV, like from Fox News or something, they make the immigration thing to me seem like it's just way worse under Biden than it was under Trump. But I don't think he's changed anything, and it's all propaganda. We may be seeing video from years ago, maybe not even be happening right now.
Right.
But it's always this clickbait type stuff that they'll post, and they'll talk about it for 5 minutes to distract you with that, and then they go on to something else. You say 24-hour news cycle, but these 5 minute clips or even 2 minute clips they're having with these people. We don't know what's going on down there.
Right.
And I don't think anybody should take anything that the corporate media is telling us to be true. It's not true. They work for the machine, depending on what side you're on, and they're going to try to manipulate you into believing one side or the other. Now,
Right.
the whole border wall thing is something I used to be for. I mean, I don't know if I'd have been for a wall, but I was always that guy. They got to come in here and do it legally. And then the more I started understanding the teachings of Christ, I just don't think he would restrict anybody's movement across an imaginary line.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't believe that. And so, and I hear this too. Well, if they're going to come into our country, they got to pay taxes. I said, pay taxes? I don't want anybody to have to pay taxes. You know what these taxes are funding?
Right.
We've been talking about it this whole show what these taxes are funding. It's just this, God, it's the mentality these people have sometimes. I just don't get it anymore. And it's a lot of the older people too. Like I said earlier, the younger folks are, to me, I have a lot more faith in coming up to kind of change this stuff for us. Make their lives better than what we've seen. And if you want to talk about that, we can. But there was another line too that I thought was so funny. Would he vote Republican or Democrat? It reminded me, and I mentioned it on the show with Josh Nichols. I got a buddy in Nashville. His name is Jay Newman, and he was talking to a musician out of California. And my listeners have already heard it, but it was pretty funny. He asked this musician, he goes, who do you think Jesus would vote for? He's being snarky about it, right? And the guy didn't care for Donald Trump. He goes, well, probably Donald Trump. And Jay's like, kings don't vote.
Exactly.
I thought that was such a clever answer to that because it's perfect. No, he wouldn't vote for either one of them, any of them. He's already the king. Why would a king vote?
That was the point of the line there, but people have misconstrued that one. It's pretty funny. I played it live. There's actually a video on my Instagram of me playing it live, and it was the first time I'd ever played it out, in fact. And after I said that line, would he vote Republican or would it be Democrat? A lady goes, woo, for Democrat. And I was like, and I wanted to just stop and be like, no, no. Because like, that's the part of the disconnect that people have is just like, I'm also like, this entire song or much of this song is about there's a genocide happening, and it's our Democratic president who's literally endlessly funding it, who won't back down. No matter what happens, he's not stopping. That's kind of the point that I'm trying to ask is like, who would he support this? Even though it's a Democrat? Hell, no, he wouldn't. Like, but people don't get that there. And that's part of the, like, I feel like there's something in there almost to challenge everyone, you know?
100%. That's what I loved about the song so much is it's, no matter where you're coming from at this conversation, Jesus wouldn't bomb anybody.
Exactly.
And there's things that you mixed up in the song too that kind of challenge other ways of thinking too that people have trouble processing themselves. They can't figure out why they believe the way they believe. Maybe they're bigots. I don't know. Which leads me to this last one, and then I'll let you get out of here. I'll let you plug your stuff. But it said, would you still believe in Jesus if you found out he was brown? And I've always found this interesting too because he was basically a Palestinian.
Yes.
If you think about where he's born.
Yeah.
Okay. But you grow up with the images of Jesus, the blonde hair, blue eyed Jesus.
Yep.
Come to find out he wouldn't look like any of us.
Right.
You know, so I appreciated that line too, because people just still believe that, you know, I don't know where that came from. Maybe the Catholics, I don't know. But the blonde hair, blue eyed Jesus, where did that come from? Because it's just completely inaccurate. But I love that line too that you added there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know at what point Jesus became Aryan either, but like, it just doesn't seem to make historical sense to me, and it also is irrelevant.
100%.
You know, it's just like it shouldn't matter, but to a lot of people, it does. And as another funny thing, that same show where the first time I played it, my buddy after the show, he was like, "Dude, there was this guy who was stirring in his seat the whole song, and he looked like he was just antsy. And then he's like, as soon as you sang that last line, before the song was even done, the crowd started to cheer, and this dude started to get up out of his seat and looked at his wife and like did the little finger circle, like, let's go, we're out of here." Like that was the line. He could not take it. Like I had offended that man by asking a question. Would you believe in Jesus if he was brown? that dude was ready to walk out of that building right then and there. Like, it's just a question too. That's the
Yeah.
other thing, is that the whole song is just a series of questions. There's no statement in it. It's literally all questions.
Well, the fact that he made it through almost the whole song before you said that, that was the straw.
Yeah, he's not racist.
I remember back in the day, I remember seeing somebing saying that God was black. And I was thinking, how could that be? I was how could that be? But and I don't think it was because I was racist. It's just what I was raised around, like images of blue-eyed, blonde-haired Jesus,
Yeah.
that guy's not racist. All right, you talked about your friends, some of your friends and your family. I was going to ask you toward the end about the pushback, but it sounds like you've got a pushback. What kind of encouragement are you getting from people who are new to your music like I am?
Just tons of it, man. Like,
Awesome.
I mean, it's been kind of overwhelming, really, just the amount of people who have, like, that. I did not expect it when I put that song up. It went, I mean, I don't know what constitutes viral these days, but like in a couple of weeks, it's been viewed probably about almost 2 million times in a small, like, maybe 5 weeks now. I've been playing music for a long time, and I've put a lot of different stuff out, videos and songs and stuff over the years. Nothing's ever caught on like that, and not even close. And the overwhelming response is that people are just like, we need this now. Like, keep doing this. Like, thank you for using your voice. And like, it's a little bit of a weird thing because it feels like there's a lot of attention on me, and like, it feels hard to accept when people are like, you are this, or you like, we need you, or and I try to remind myself that it's not about me. It's about what I have to say, and that's why it's resonating. It's not because I look cool. It's not because I got a great voice. It's because of what I have to say. Other people are feeling and other people are thinking. And a lot of people said exactly what you said, which is that they felt the same thing. They just didn't know how to put it into words, So it's been kind of a process of like learning to kind of, I don't know, I've struggled a lot in my life with like believing in myself and like believing in what I have to say and believing that it's worth saying and that people want to hear it. And I think I'm just recognizing, being able to accept that it's not like an ego-driven thing to just believe, like, I feel like I've been given a gift and that it's my duty and obligation to share that with people as much as possible. And that, like, I feel very fortunate that I could just sit in my house and write some words down on a piece of paper, or even write them in my phone, put some music to them, have a good cry myself while I write them, put it out into the world, and then people are saying the same thing. Like, I broke down listening to this, or something about this song healed me, or this healed my religious trauma, or whatever it is, like, that feels so important. Like, and it gives meaning to my life,
Yeah.
So I'm so grateful that people have resonated with it. And, I've also got my fair share of haters now, and
Cool.
Like, good. I'm doing something right then,
Yeah.
because I think I tiptoed around a lot for a long time about certain things and how I felt about them. And I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid to be myself and say what I want to say.
That's awesome. That is cool. Yeah, good for you for having some haters. I always appreciate my haters. They give me more content.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, hey, thanks for spending an hour commenting on my stuff today.
Boosting the algorithms.
Yeah,
Big
like,
fan of the haters.
exactly. You're like, you're just spreading the message further, brother.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. So where did you record that song at, real quick, before I let you go? I know on the original video I saw, it looked like you were in a church. Were you in a church, or?
Yeah. That was actually it's a music venue. It's
Okay.
It's in Newport, Kentucky. It's called Southgate House Revival, and it's an old church that's converted into a music venue. And
Very cool.
I usually just, all the videos I've done before of me playing my songs have all been in my living room, and I felt like it was played out. And this one, I was like, I got to get out of my house. And it's like, I'm going to go down to Southgate and do it with the stained glass in the background, just for, give it a little more visual effect. Actually, the track that I released I just extracted it from the video. I didn't go to a studio to record it or anything. So it's very lo-fi. It doesn't sound great. And I don't care, because it's not about that. That's the part of the whole thing. Like what I was just saying is it's not about an aesthetic. It's not about anything but the message, and the message resonated. So I don't need to go to a studio and spend hundreds of dollars and hire a producer to like make some shiny packaged thing to put out into the world and hope that people like it. It's like, no, they already liked it. So just drop it, and let it do its thing. Let people listen.
I like stuff like that when it comes to music, though. Like the video, like the reason I asked is I noticed the glass behind you, the stained glass behind you. But I thought it was a cool setting. But I appreciate it when I hear a new song from somebody. But I don't care if they're sitting in their living room or in an old church building or whatever. I don't need all that production behind it. I'm more about the music, the song, and what's going on with the music. So that was cool to me the way you set that up. I appreciate you coming on, and maybe if you put another song out there that's going to push some buttons, I'll definitely get you back on if you're interested.
Right on. I'll come up with something, I'm sure.
Good. We'll go ahead and plug your stuff. Tell everybody where they can find your all your music at, and we'll plug it in the show notes as well.
Oh yeah. My name is Jordan Smart, and my music's available pretty much anywhere you stream. Spotify, Apple, Tidal, whatever, Deezer. But on Instagram, I'm at Jordan Smart Music. I'm on all the social media things. I'm not super active on them. The project I mentioned earlier, the Songs Not Bombs, I don't have any music on it, but it's a great 2-volume compilation, probably a third coming soon. If you want to check that out, it's at songsnotbombs.bandcamp.com. And every purchase from that, 100% of the proceeds goes to the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund. And we've raised over 15 grand so far, and we're not stopping quite yet. So yeah, any support there is much appreciated.
That's awesome.
And I should mention as well that the track "Who Would Jesus Bomb" that's available to stream right now. All proceeds from streaming, and also if you purchase it on iTunes or whatever, I'm donating all of that to the PCRF as well, because that's what it's about.
Hey folks, who would Jesus bomb? We've posed this question across our social media sites more than once, and the answer is almost a resounding nobody. But knowing this, we have to ask, why are there so many pro-war Christians? Well, today I have Jordan Smart on the show to talk about this and much more.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thanks, Craig.
Yes, sir. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Bad Roman Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you find your podcasts to never miss an episode. And while you're at it, if you like what you heard, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, it really helps people find us. 100% of donations are given to local charities in Memphis, Tennessee. To learn more about the Bad Roman Project and to find show notes, please visit thebadroman.com.